Lena sat in her small, cluttered apartment, staring out the window at the gray skyline. It was a Monday, but the day felt indistinguishable from the others in a long line of monotonous weeks. At 32, she was stuck in a rut, working long hours at a job she no longer found fulfilling. Her days were filled with the hum of emails, meetings, and mundane tasks, all seemingly designed to keep her busy but never truly engaged. She had once dreamed of traveling the world, of creating art, of making a difference. But somewhere along the way, those dreams faded into the background, crowded out by responsibilities and the pressure of societal expectations. Now, she felt like a mere spectator in her own life, trapped in the routine of a career she no longer cared about, living in an apartment she barely recognized as home. The discontent she felt was more than just dissatisfaction with her job or circumstances. It was a profound sense of emptiness, as though something vital was missing. She often asked herself, "Is this really all there is? Is this my purpose?" The thought haunted her, a persistent whisper in the back of her mind that she couldn't shake off. Lena had lost sight of the things that once mattered most to her: creativity, connection, and a sense of belonging to something larger than herself. Her world had become increasingly isolated, her connections to others superficial, her passions distant memories. As Lena moved through the early stages of her transformation, the decision to trust in the higher power became her guiding principle. It was no longer just a philosophical idea or a vague concept. It was a commitment to act in alignment with the greater purpose that had begun to take root in her heart. The first step was simple, but profound. She decided to stop seeking external validation and instead turned inward. She stopped frantically looking for a new job the moment she was laid off and began exploring what truly resonated with her spirit. Lena had always been drawn to creativity, but her job had left little room for self-expression. She decided to dedicate a part of her day to rekindling her love for painting, something she hadn't done since childhood. With no expectations of turning it into a career or making money from it, she began to let the brush flow freely, focusing solely on the act of creation rather than the outcome. It was an act of pure joy, an expression of her inner self that had long been suppressed. She also started taking more time for meditation and journaling. Each morning, after her quiet meditations, she would write down her thoughts, what she was learning, what she was letting go of, and what she was beginning to embrace. The practice gave her clarity, and slowly it became clear that her old patterns of overachievement and self-worth based on external success were not in alignment with the deeper calling she was beginning to feel. Small changes emerged in Lena's behavior as well. She began saying no to commitments that didn't bring her joy or fulfillment. The once strict routine of her life, filled with obligations that drained her energy, started to loosen. She made space for new opportunities to emerge, attending events on topics that piqued her interest, volunteering for causes she cared about, and meeting new people who shared similar values. These actions were subtle but significant shifts toward a life that was more authentic and connected to her true self. But the path toward transformation wasn't without obstacles. The first major challenge Lena faced was external: the judgment of others. When she told her family and friends about her decision to step away from her career to explore new possibilities, she encountered resistance. Her parents, well-meaning but conventional, expressed concern about her financial security. "You need to get another job," her mother insisted. "How will you pay the bills? What about your future?" Her friends, too, were skeptical. They didn't understand why Lena, a successful professional, would walk away from the corporate world and its comforts. "What are you doing?" one of them asked, eyebrows raised. "You can't just leave everything behind. You have responsibilities." Though their concerns were rooted in love, their reactions triggered a wave of self-doubt in Lena. Was she being foolish? Could she really take this leap and trust that things would work out? The societal pressure to follow a prescribed path, climbing the corporate ladder, achieving success in measurable ways, was a heavy weight that tugged at her. But these external obstacles weren't the only challenges Lena faced. She also had to confront her own internal resistance. Old habits died hard, and the familiar patterns of self-doubt often crept in. Despite the clarity she had gained in her meditation and the guidance she had received, fear still had a hold on her. What if I fail? What if I can't make a living doing what I love? The idea of embracing uncertainty, of stepping into the unknown without a safety net, felt like a terrifying plunge into darkness. Her internal voice often questioned her decisions. You're not good enough. You're wasting your time. You'll never make it. There were days when these fears threatened to drown out the voice of the higher power that had once felt so clear and strong. Lena's journey was not linear. For every moment of clarity and inspiration, there were setbacks and days filled with doubt. But slowly, she learned to recognize the patterns of fear and the old ways of thinking that had kept her stuck. She began to realize that these were not truths, but simply old stories she had told herself. Despite the obstacles, Lena began to see herself and her life differently. She no longer viewed herself solely as a professional or someone defined by career achievements. For the first time, she saw herself as a whole person with a deep well of potential that went far beyond the confines of any job or role. Through her creative practice, meditation, and new connections with like-minded individuals, Lena realized that her true purpose wasn't tied to her career or a specific outcome. Her purpose was to live authentically, to contribute to the world in a way that aligned with her values, and to embrace her creativity as a means of expression. It became clear that her true calling was not just in art, but in being of service to others, sharing her experiences of transformation, inspiring others to live their truth, and helping others reconnect to their own inner wisdom. The more Lena allowed herself to follow this inner guidance, the more her confidence grew. She realized that the fear she once had was simply a reflection of the unfamiliar, the unknown. It was not an obstacle, but a signpost, pointing her toward the areas of her life that were ready for transformation. The more she trusted in the higher power, the more she was able to release control and let go of the fear that had once paralyzed her. The role of the higher power in Lena's transformation was unmistakable. It wasn't just an abstract concept or distant force. It was her constant companion, guiding her through every moment of uncertainty and doubt. The higher power became the lens through which she began to see her life differently. It was present in every breakthrough, every moment of clarity that illuminated her path forward. One significant moment came when Lena was invited to speak at a local event about her journey of self-discovery and transformation. At first, the idea of standing in front of a crowd terrified her. What if she wasn't good enough? What if she made a mistake? But the same quiet voice that had guided her through her meditation practice whispered to her, "Trust. This is part of your path. You have something to share." She chose to trust the process and accepted the invitation. When she stood before the audience, she felt a profound sense of alignment, a deep connection to her higher self and to the energy of those around her. She spoke from the heart, sharing her journey of doubt and discovery, and the response was overwhelmingly positive. For the first time, Lena felt the validation she had been seeking not from external sources, but from the truth within herself. In that moment, Lena realized that the higher power had always been there, leading her step by step, guiding her through moments of fear and doubt, and helping her reconnect with her true purpose. She no longer felt lost or disconnected from her path. Instead, she felt deeply aligned with a greater plan, one that was unfolding before her in ways she could never have imagined. Her transformation was just beginning, and with the higher power as her guide, She knew the journey would continue to unfold in ways that were both miraculous and beautiful. At times, she felt the weight of a looming question that gnawed at her soul. Why am I here? The search for meaning seemed like a luxury she couldn't afford, an indulgence when there were bills to pay and responsibilities to fulfill. Yet the more she ignored it, the louder the question grew. Lena longed for a sense of purpose, but she had no idea where to start or how to find it. Deep down, she knew something had to change, but she wasn't sure what that change would look like, or even if she was capable of making it. The shift began subtly. It was a random evening, and Lena was scrolling through her social media feed when a post caught her attention. It was from an old friend, someone she hadn't spoken to in years. The post was a quote. "When you align your life with a higher purpose, everything falls into place." Beneath the quote, her friend had written, "I've found peace and direction through meditation and a deeper connection to a higher power. It's transformed my life." Lena had never been one to delve into spirituality. Raised in a secular household, she had always viewed ideas like higher powers and divine purpose as abstract concepts, more suited to religious groups than practical individuals like herself. But the post sparked something in her, a curiosity, a flicker of interest. She dismissed the thought at first, telling herself it was just another trendy self-help post. Yet she couldn't forget it. There was a part of her that wondered if maybe, just maybe, there was something to it. A few days later, Lena found herself wandering into a small bookstore during her lunch break. She was searching for something, although she wasn't quite sure what. Amid the stacks of novels and biographies, a book caught her eye. Its title, The Power Within. Connecting to the source of your purpose seemed to call out to her. Without thinking too much about it, she picked it up and flipped through the pages. The words felt different from anything she had ever read, less like instructions and more like an invitation to explore something deeper. The author spoke of universal energy, the idea that every individual was connected to a higher source, a force that could guide them toward their true purpose if only they were willing to listen. As she read, Lena felt both skeptical and intrigued. She had never been one for New Age philosophy or mystical ideas, but something about the way the author described the experience of connecting to a higher power resonated with her on a profound level. It wasn't about religion or dogma, but rather about embracing a broader perspective, recognizing that there was more to life than the daily grind, more to existence than what could be measured in accomplishments or material wealth. It was about finding alignment with something greater than oneself. However, Lena was still hesitant. A higher power? She couldn't shake the feeling that this was all too abstract, too ungrounded in reality. She had always prided herself on her rationality, her practical approach to life. The idea of surrendering control, of trusting in something beyond her understanding, was a leap she wasn't sure she was ready to take. But she couldn't deny the yearning that had awakened within her. There was something about this idea of a greater force, guiding her to her true purpose, that felt like it could be the answer to the questions she had been asking for years. The first step came quietly. Lena decided to explore the concepts she had encountered in the book more seriously. She began practicing mindfulness, taking short moments each day to sit in silence and focus on her breath. At first, it felt strange. Her mind raced, thoughts constantly pulling her away from the present moment. But as days turned into weeks, she began to notice a shift. There was a subtle sense of peace that emerged from within, a quiet knowing that she wasn't alone in her search for meaning. She wasn't sure what the higher power was yet, but she began to feel its presence, not as an external force but as a part of her, a deep well of wisdom and guidance that had always been there, waiting to be discovered. This new practice opened her up to a deeper understanding of herself and her life. She began to question the choices she had made, the path she had been on, the career she had built, the relationships she had maintained out of convenience, All seemed to pale in comparison to the possibility of living a life driven by purpose. The questions she had long buried within her began to resurface. What do I truly want? What is my true calling? The more she meditated, the more she realized that the answers wouldn't come overnight. They required patience, introspection, and a willingness to surrender the need for certainty. But for the first time in years, Lena felt a glimmer of hope. Hope that change was possible, that transformation was within reach. This was just the beginning, and though she was unsure of where it would lead, she felt an undeniable pull to continue the journey. The yearning for deeper meaning, for a connection to something greater, had begun to awaken within her. The call for transformation had been made, and Lena was ready to answer. As Lena's journey into mindfulness deepened, so too did her curiosity about the concept of a higher power. The idea had initially felt nebulous and abstract to her, something intangible and far removed from her rational, everyday existence. But over time, she began to sense that this higher power wasn't something to be understood with the mind alone. It wasn't a deity with a human form or a distant force governing the world's events. Rather, it felt like an energy, unseen but ever present, flowing through everything and everyone, waiting to be tapped into. The books she had read spoke of this higher power in different terms: universal energy, divine wisdom, the universe itself, or even the collective consciousness. To Lena, it became clear that this force was not bound by any single definition. It could be described as the essence of all life, the interwoven threads that connect every living thing. Some days, she thought of it as a kind of inner wisdom, that quiet knowing within her that had always been there, but was often drowned out by the noise of the world. Other times, she imagined it as the universe's way of nudging people toward their higher purpose, like a gentle guide, always there, waiting for them to listen. What mattered most, however, was the feeling she had as she began to tune into this force. It wasn't something she had to search for externally. It existed inside of her. It was an intuitive knowing that came when she was still, when she allowed herself to be present in the moment. It was in the quiet, the space between her thoughts, the peace that arose when she stopped pushing and simply allowed herself to be. Through her growing meditation practice, Lena found that she could tap into this higher power more readily. At first, it felt like a soft whisper in her mind, a fleeting insight that passed quickly, but over time, it became louder, clearer, and more persistent. She could hear it in the stillness of her soul, and though she had not yet fully understood the nature of this higher power, she knew it was guiding her, urging her to move beyond the limits of her old beliefs and embrace the possibility of a more meaningful life. Just as Lena began to feel a deeper connection to this higher power, life threw her a curveball. A sudden and unexpected upheaval forced her to confront the very essence of what she was beginning to believe in. One afternoon, Lena's boss called her into his office. There, she was informed that the company had decided to restructure, and her position was being eliminated. The news hit her like a wave, a surge of disbelief followed by the cold grip of anxiety. She had worked tirelessly for years to build her career, climbing the corporate ladder with determination and focus. Now, in an instant, everything she had worked for seemed to crumble before her. The next few days were a blur. Lena's thoughts swirled with fear and doubt. What now, she wondered. She felt lost, unsure of her next steps. The career that had defined her for so long was suddenly gone, and with it, the sense of security and stability that had always underpinned her life. The questions from earlier, what is my purpose, why am I here, came rushing back, louder and more urgent than ever. This wasn't just a job loss. It felt like a wake-up call, an invitation to truly reconsider what she wanted from life. As Lena grappled with her new reality, she decided to take a step back and meditate. She needed clarity, and in her heart, She knew the answers wouldn't come from frantic thinking or worrying. They would come from within, from the connection she had begun to foster with that higher power. She sat in her living room, closed her eyes, and breathed deeply, inviting stillness into her mind. In that moment of silence, something remarkable happened. It wasn't a voice she heard, but a knowing, a sense of calm certainty that washed over her. The higher power, this universal energy she had been slowly learning to trust, whispered to her, not in words but in feelings. It was as if the very fabric of her being had aligned with something larger than herself. She realized that this job loss was not an end, but a beginning. It was an opportunity to let go of the old and step into something new, something truer to her soul's purpose. The guidance that came through during that meditation was clear. Trust the process. You are being guided. This is part of your journey, not a setback. It wasn't a miraculous solution to all her problems, but it was a moment of clarity, a reassurance that there was something beyond the immediate fear and uncertainty. The higher power wasn't offering her an easy way out, but instead the strength to face the challenge and the wisdom to navigate it with faith. Despite the clarity and peace that had emerged from her meditation, Lena's journey wasn't without its internal conflict. The next few weeks were filled with a constant battle between the old familiar patterns of fear and doubt and the new unfamiliar trust in the guidance of the higher power. Old habits resurfaced. Lena found herself slipping back into her default mode of overthinking and second-guessing every decision. What if I'm not good enough? What if I fail? These thoughts were hard to ignore, and they often overwhelmed the peace she had felt in her meditation. The fear of failure, of losing control, was deeply ingrained in her. She had spent years building her life around the notion of achievement and success, and now, with her job gone, she felt as though her foundation had crumbled. She questioned whether she could truly trust in the higher power. How could I have been guided to this? She wondered. Why would the universe take away something I've worked so hard for? But despite the doubts, there was a small part of her that knew the right path was one of surrender, not resistance. She had a choice to make. She could cling to the familiar, stay in the comfort zone of her old career, or she could embrace this uncertainty, trust the process, and allow the higher power to lead her to something new. It was a difficult choice, one that required letting go of the illusion of control and stepping into the unknown. In the days that followed, Lena made the decision to trust. She began exploring new possibilities, taking small steps toward careers and paths she had once dismissed as impractical. Each day, she chose to let go of fear and step into the unknown with an open heart, trusting that the higher power would continue to guide her. It wasn't easy, and the doubts never fully disappeared, but with each new choice she made, she felt the presence of the higher power supporting her, strengthening her resolve. In the end, Lena realized that the true test wasn't the job loss itself. It was her willingness to trust in something greater than herself, to embrace the unknown and step into a future that was yet to be revealed. This was the beginning of her true transformation. As Lena continued her journey of transformation, she found that her perspective on life had shifted in ways she could never have anticipated. The fear and doubt that had once clouded her vision began to fade, replaced by a profound sense of clarity and direction. Her decision to let go of her old career path and trust in the guidance of the higher power had led her to new insights about her true purpose, and for the first time in years, she felt a deep sense of alignment with herself. Lena's purpose, she realized, was not tied to a specific job, title, or achievement. It wasn't about climbing a career ladder or meeting external expectations. Instead, her true mission was to live authentically, embracing her creative passions and connecting deeply with the people and the world around her. She discovered that her purpose lay in her ability to inspire others, to share her story of transformation, and to help people reconnect with their own inner wisdom and potential. This newfound clarity wasn't something that came in an instant but evolved gradually, with each choice she made and each step she took toward embracing her true self. Lena began to understand that purpose wasn't a fixed destination. It was a continuous unfolding of who she was meant to become, guided by the higher power that had always been present within her. It was an ongoing journey of growth, learning, and connection, not an endpoint to be reached. Her sense of purpose also led to a deeper connection with others. Lena began to see everyone she encountered through a new lens. She could sense the shared human experience, the universal longing for meaning, the struggles with fear and doubt, and the deep desire for connection. She no longer felt isolated in her journey. Instead, she felt an interconnectedness with those around her. Her interactions became more meaningful as she stopped viewing people through the lens of what they could offer her, and instead focused on how she could contribute to their lives. As Lena gained clarity about her purpose, she felt an overwhelming desire to give back to the world in a way that was authentic to her. She had spent years focusing on her own desires and ambitions, but now her focus shifted outward. The higher power had guided her not only toward personal healing, but also toward a larger mission of service. She began to recognize that her journey wasn't just about her own transformation. It was about helping others find their own path and realize their own potential. She began volunteering at local community centers, offering free creative workshops for people who had never considered art as a means of self-expression. Lena was amazed at how quickly her heart filled with joy when she saw others experiencing moments of self-discovery and growth. It wasn't about teaching them to become professional artists, but about giving them the space to connect with their inner creativity, to break free from the limitations they had placed on themselves. In addition, Lena started to host small gatherings where people could come together to share their stories of personal transformation. She wasn't trying to be an expert or a guru, but rather a guide, offering her own experiences and insights as a way to help others navigate their own paths. These gatherings became a source of deep connection, where people shared their vulnerabilities, their fears, and their dreams, knowing they were in a safe space where they could be their authentic selves. Lena discovered the profound joy of living in alignment with her higher purpose. The act of contributing to the world, whether through creativity, sharing her story, or helping others find their own path, brought a sense of fulfillment she had never experienced before. It wasn't just about achieving goals or accumulating success. It was about the simple act of being true to herself and helping others do the same. She realized that the more she gave, the more she received. Not material wealth, but something far more valuable, a deep sense of peace, connection, and inner satisfaction. The impact of Lena's transformation was far-reaching, not only in her sense of self, but also in every aspect of her life. As she began to align with her higher purpose, she experienced profound personal and professional growth. She no longer defined success by external accomplishments, but by the sense of fulfillment she felt from living in harmony with her authentic self. Professionally, Lena decided to pursue a career that was more aligned with her values and passions. She left the corporate world behind, unsure of exactly where the path would lead, but confident that she was headed in the right direction. She began working as a creative coach, helping others find their own voice through art, writing, or other forms of self-expression. She also started a blog, sharing her journey of transformation and offering resources to others who were seeking their own purpose. While it wasn't an easy transition, Lena felt more alive and energized than ever before. Each step felt like a confirmation that she was exactly where she was meant to be. Her relationships also began to deepen. Lena no longer sought validation from others or tried to conform to their expectations. Instead, she focused on building authentic connections. She rekindled old friendships, letting go of the superficial connections she had once clung to in order to fit in. The people in her life now felt like true companions, individuals who shared her values and supported her in her journey of growth. She attracted new friendships that were based on mutual respect, vulnerability, and a shared commitment to living authentically. Her relationships became a source of strength, support, and love, no longer marked by the strain of trying to prove herself. Most importantly, Lena felt a sense of peace, fulfillment, and authenticity that permeated every area of her life. There was no longer a need to chase after external achievements or accolades. Instead, she was content in the knowledge that she was living in alignment with her purpose. She woke up each morning with a sense of excitement, knowing that she was contributing to the world in a way that was meaningful to her. Her days were no longer filled with the anxiety of wondering if she was on the right path, because she knew deep down that the only path she needed to follow was the one that felt true to her heart. The transformation had not been easy. It had required immense courage, letting go of old fears and beliefs and embracing the unknown. But through it all, Lena had come to realize that the higher power had been guiding her all along, not to a destination, but to a way of being. Her life had become a journey of self-discovery, connection, and service. She was no longer living for external markers of success. She was living for something far greater, her true purpose. And that was enough. Lena sat in the quiet of her studio, surrounded by the soft hum of the world outside, as she reflected on the incredible journey that had brought her to this point. A quiet sense of awe washed over her as she thought back to where she had started. It seemed like a lifetime ago that she had been caught in the grip of fear, uncertainty, and dissatisfaction, chasing a version of success that had never felt truly fulfilling. Back then, her days had been marked by the struggle to meet others' expectations, to climb the corporate ladder, and to maintain an image of outward success. She had thought that this would bring her peace, but instead, it had left her empty. The pivotal moment had come when her job was taken away. At the time, it had felt like a loss, a devastating blow that had sent her reeling. But now, looking back, Lena could see that it had been the beginning of something much greater than she had ever imagined. It was the wake-up call, the jolt that forced her to question everything she thought she knew about herself and her purpose. It had been the catalyst for a journey of self-discovery and transformation, one that had unfolded slowly, often with uncertainty, but always with a sense of inner guidance that she now understood as the higher power. The process of transformation had been cyclical. It had not been a straight line from point A to point B, but a series of waves, moments of clarity followed by periods of doubt, bursts of inspiration, followed by times of struggle. The more Lena embraced this cyclical nature of growth, the more she understood that transformation wasn't a one-time event, but an ongoing process. Each lesson learned, each obstacle overcome, had only prepared her for the next phase of her journey. It was a continual cycle of shedding the old, embracing the new, and expanding into a more authentic version of herself. The higher power had been there at every turn, guiding her through each transition, offering insights during times of confusion, and reassuring her when she felt lost. Looking back, Lena could see how every challenge, every moment of resistance, had played an essential role in shaping the person she was becoming. There was no end point to her journey. Rather, it was an ongoing unfolding of new possibilities, a deeper understanding of who she was, and a more profound connection to the world around her. In this moment of reflection, Lena felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the guidance and support she had received from the higher power. At the start of her journey, she hadn't known what to expect, and she certainly hadn't anticipated the deep spiritual awakening that would follow. But as she allowed herself to surrender to the process, She began to trust more and more in the unseen force that had quietly been guiding her all along.